Nate Diaz, as we said, accepted a fight against Leon Edwards. I don't believe it's official. I believe it's just a report so far. I didn't see that was confirmed, but it's supposedly for UFC 262, and it will be a co-main event 5-round fight for the first time in UFC history. What was your reaction to this, Sean? Because I've seen different reactions from a lot of different people, but spoiler alert, I was surprised, as I said in the top of this, I was surprised when I saw it that Nate Diaz was returning, but also because of this specific opponent. So what was your thoughts?
Yeah, surprise as well. I mean, I woke up and I was scrolling through Twitter in bed and seeing the news, and I was like, that is so surprising. I mean, when you think about it, it's kind of very Nate Diaz as well. There's talk as well that he's been offered other guys, higher ranked guys, or lower ranked guys, easier fights probably. But it probably is very Nate Diaz to take a fight like this. A guy who's on like a 9 fight winning streak, hasn't lost in so long, hasn't lost since he lost to Kamaru Usman.
Mm.
I didn't ever really see Nate coming back for a fight like this, to be honest.
Yeah, that's the thing. As you said, it's very Nate Diaz in the sense that it's a really tough guy on a very long win streak. And if you reel back a little bit and remember what Nate was talking about when he was offered like Colby Covington about a year ago, or about a year and a half ago, he said, this was when Nate was coming off a win, by the way. He said, why would I fight him? I'm coming off a win. He just lost. I just want to fight winners. So in that sense, yeah, it makes some sense. But I was also surprised because Leon is very much a B-side in this one. And the impression that I got from Nate, especially after the Conor fight, was that he really just wants really big fights where he can make a lot of money from them. Really big fights where maybe he's the B-side himself, because even though he's a huge star and he's going to be the A-side in most of his fights, apart from the bigger guys, I just thought he was going to aim a little bit higher. But maybe it kind of tells us how he feels about Leon Edwards in a certain way, because as we said, Nate likes to fight these guys who are on win streaks, yes, but also he likes to fight guys who he thinks are deserving to fight him because of what they've done in the past. And one thing that you have to give Leon credit for is that over the past, how many years he's been in the UFC, he's been fighting all these guys who are pretty much unheralded, but a lot of guys who are very good. And he hasn't been given the push and the rub from the promoter, which I feel like Nate Diaz felt like that was himself a few years ago, and probably still feels like it's himself. I mean, he's been a huge star for the last few years, but it seems like the UFC, kind of like with John Jones, refuses to give him the credit in terms of him being a needle mover, so to speak. So maybe he sees a little bit of himself in Leon, but also he probably sees the opportunity that if he goes in there, beats Leon Edwards, and beats the guy who Jorge Masvidal ostensibly doesn't want to fight after punching him backstage in London, he can go in there and say, all right, if Jorge Masvidal wins that fight against Usman, probably won't happen, but if he does, Jorge, you wouldn't fight this guy, let's run it back. I beat this guy that you refuse to fight, one of the toughest guys in the division, fights him, or he can get a title fight coming off it against Usman either way, because, I mean, Leon is probably right thereabouts. So a little bit surprising, but also makes some sense when you think about what Nate might be thinking about, right?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point. I think Nate accepting this fight kind of really does put some respect on Leon's name this time.
Yes.
Respect that he hasn't been actually just been getting from anyone, really. People have been laughing at him, been saying, why is... Well, I mean, the core fans, the hardcores have probably respected Leon and kind of been wanting him to get big fights. It just hasn't been happening. I think Nate accepting a fight against you, it does kind of put some respect on your name. And I mean, we spoke about it off air probably a while ago when Nate was on with Ariel and that interview. I thought that was a really interesting interview at the time, because he said he wanted to fight 3 or 4 times this year. That's just something we haven't. It's just kind of a level of activity we haven't seen from Nate Diaz in a long time. And I mean, taking a fight like this does kind of set him up to fight at least twice this year, if not 3 times.
Yeah, exactly. I kind of want to talk about the 5-round co-main event. I'd imagine that was Nate Diaz's demand. I wonder if it was. So. I mean, Nate feels like he's better over 5 rounds anyway. We know that. I wonder if it was a bit of a power play by Nate, just kind of, I'll take this fight against Leon, difficult fight, but give me 5 rounds, just to the UFC to kind of say, I'm a little bit in charge here.
Yeah.
But what do you feel about the 5 rounds? Not just for this one, but in general. Do you like the idea of having 5 round co-main events?
As a European MMA fan, no. No.
Fair.
Longer fight cards, man. I'm not about longer fight cards. They're long enough. I like it in this case. I think it makes. I think if you're, I think it's something that I would like them to pick and choose which fights to do it for. I mean, there's some co-main events we don't want to see going 5 rounds. In this
Yeah.
one, I'm happy to watch this one go 5 rounds. I think it's a fight I like a lot. So quite happy to have this one as 5 rounds. But long term, I do not want to see co-main events as 5 round fights if they're not title fights.
Yeah. Like, I mean, they still have to play into the broadcasting timeline, so I'd imagine they'll have to rearrange something. I guess less breaks in between fights, less kind of advertisements in between fights, or less analyst work in between the fights.
There'll probably be one less fight on the prelims or something like that.
Exactly, yeah. So they'll have to work around it because they can't go over the allotted time that they have. I believe it's 3 hours, right, on pay-per-view. But I do agree. I mean, it could be a slog if you have a fight that necessarily you don't really want to see 5 rounds of. Like, imagine if it was some sloppy heavyweight fight that doesn't finish early. Good God.